how do I show up in relationships. And I think that is one of the things that I put this in my LinkedIn post this morning, is that I went to people for specific things, and then I started to understand over the years just how much this really evolves into who am I as a person, and carries into all different aspects, way more than just business or professional realm. I did, however, leverage other people with a very specific ask. At the top line there, I have an MSP colleague who owns an MSP, and starting maybe 10 years ago, I came to him because he was being so successful in increasing his EBITDA, his bottom line revenue, and growing his business, and I felt like I just kept butting into walls. And he specifically worked with me on how to understand the financial reporting, what is EBITDA, creating value in my being able to manage well, stuff like that. And I had a very formalized relationship with him, that I would show up to our meetings and I would actually have printouts of my finances, and I'd have my laptop ready, and I would have a list of things that he asked me to do since our last meeting, and we'd go through the list one by one, and then I'd review with him all of the stuff that I brought, and we would agree on what are the next things that I need to work on, so that when I show up again, I would be accountable for continuing and doing the work. And his time is really valuable, and that's one of the main things that I really understood as a mentee in any of my relationships, is that if it's less formal, that's one thing. If you're friends, if it's, so did you have anything you need help with, and it's really unstructured, that's one thing. But if you have a more structured relationship, I find being accountable and being prepared and responsible for what I'm committing to really makes it worth their. And then the final one that I have here is that one of my clients, when I had my MSP, is an extremely well-known woman in public relations and in a lot of like political circles. And she was a member of, and still is, very involved in getting women on boards, on public boards. And I was, T. Renee, you have so much experience with this, and at some point in my career, I'd like to serve on a board as well. And so for the last 6 years, we've been meeting once a quarter to every 3 to 6 months, talking through where am I at in this journey, and she makes introductions to other people. She's featured me in her podcast, and I work with her in a very limited scope, specifically for those things. And then on the other side of that, I have been a mentor in several different scenarios. There's a lot of MSPs that come to me for advice. They'll text me or call me, and I'll spend an hour to 2 hours at a time talking through specific challenges that they have, and they're just friends. They've been like part of my posse. I have a large base of MSP colleagues in Southern California because I had my MSP business for 21 years. And they know that I share as much information publicly as I can and have an attitude of that. And so they call me in all kinds of situations. The most recent one felt like he really was so far behind the ball on how do you integrate cybersecurity into your own MSP, and how do you properly sell it to your clients. And he was starting to lose clients that were concerned about the security of their network. And so he was way behind the 8 ball. And I had a very honest, transparent conversation with him, and I gave him a specific set of action items that I wanted him to do. And he just pinged me 2 days ago on LinkedIn, and he's got 4 out of 5 of them underway. And he was so excited, and it's just really fulfilling to work in this kind of a capacity. I find it's one of the things that I enjoy the most. I have a friend that is extremely technical. She's a hunter. That means is that she's a cyber analyst, and she'll go onto a network and she'll hunt for a threat actor and be able to determine exactly what the kind of footprint they have, how long they've been there, what they've been exposed to, how to mitigate it. is extremely technical, and she's an introvert, and I adore her, but she's really struggling with having management acknowledge where she's at in her career and how to like have a voice. Like, she's afraid to talk in meetings, and a lot of that personality, that's just like who they are. Really, she literally wears a hoodie. She's works remotely, so she's sitting there in the dark at her computer for a lot of the day, in the night, and so trying to gain visibility, think a manager would, or a leader, being able to strategize. We just spend a lot of time talking through these things. And then for the past several years, I've been working with a high school in Texas. I don't even know how they found me, but I went through a formal mentor program with them where I had to fill out all kinds of applications. I had to get fingerprinted, go through a background check. And I've only ever worked with their girls in STEM program remotely. I've never even met them in person. And that's a very structured and formalized approach where, and we'll talk through some ideas of what this might look like. But I like that they have their girls, when they contact me, they have a list of things that they need to accomplish for every call. And at the start of the call, they tell me what their list is, and then they start going through. At the end of the call, they ask me how I feel that they've performed in what they've been assigned to do. And they ask me for specific feedback, and it's a really cool dynamic. I help them to deliver a final presentation and help them select which direction they want to head in cybersecurity as they graduate out of high school. And that's been super fulfilling as well. And then I have several people on LinkedIn that have reached out to me. I was laid off in 2020 at the start of COVID, and I started posting about it. It was brutal. For 6 months I went being unemployed, and after I gained employment in a career position that I really loved, finally, I started posting about it on LinkedIn and making myself available. And I've had so many people reach out to me that were recently laid off or are just like miserable in the job that they have, and they really want to make a change. And so I just guide them as best as I can. And most often what that looks like is I introduce them to as many people in the line of career expertise that they want to get into as I can. It's just a lot of introductions and following up and championing their success. And then I have a couple specific colleagues where I work here at Summit 7 that have either struggled with how are they navigating in their role for whatever reason, or really just want to learn a lot more about cybersecurity and gain visibility themselves. And so I work with them and mentor them in that capacity. So that's a bit about my experience. And when I was talking to Tracy about this, one of the things we agreed is that being really clear on what your expectations are and what you want out of a mentor-mentee relationship is the thing that will set you up for success. For example, as a mentee, to be able to state to somebody that you would like to mentor you, what your goal is, how often you'd like to be able to meet, how formalized you'd like it to be. Is this for a span of over the next 6 months until X happens, or is this for ongoing? I'd love to see, as long as you're available to me, I'd love for us to continue to develop and cultivate our relationship. And then on the mentor side, how much time do you even have available? I know that there's other women like myself, even on this call, that struggle to juggle everything that we've already committed to. And so it could be, given the amount of travel we do or family obligations or what have you, that it would be unrealistic to say that we could meet with a mentee more often than once a month, or that it would only be when we're both going to be in the same location prior to a conference or over the span of being at a conference, that we can spend some quality time together, whatever that might look like. But really, it doesn't have to be prescribed up front. As we organically grow anything in the 2Seats community. It could just be a matter of, as we introduce those who are interested in being mentored and those who are interested in mentoring, that each of those relationships can independently design what's going to work best for them. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I have talked quite a bit, and stop screen sharing. See if we can, there we are. All right, put this back and open it up if we can get some feedback. I have a list of about 8 people on each side that are interested in being a mentor and or being a mentee. And what I'd like to see is opening this up to, what do you think would be a great way to grow the community of mentorship, and the best way for people to meet each other and determine whether or not they would be a good fit for each other? Because we can have a formally speed dating. We could do breakout rooms, and Tracy and I were laughing about this. Just have a separate breakout room for each person that is available as a mentor, and do a session where people can just jump into each of those breakout rooms and sit and chat. Is it a group scenario? Is it a one-on-one scenario? Is it, let's just give all of you each other's contact information? Ta-da! That's what I wanted to do to start the conversation.